There were a number of positives in Miami's 49-12 win over USF, and one of them was running back Mark Fletcher running for 120 yards, posting his third 100-yard game of his career. His first one since 2023. Great to see him get the 120, but also the 2 touchdowns. Here's offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson on what Mark did well in the game.
I don't know what the actual stat was. My man here might know, but he had a lot of yards after contact. You know, he really did. There were some runs there, and obviously we blocked things up well, but they really did. I mean, they came out and really stacked the box on us. I mean, they made the box really tight. And so there were some runs he made that he got hit within 2 or 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, and we gained 10 or 15 yards. And part of that was our O-line's push, you know, and even on the big run, you know, Malley, Keelan, CJ, all those guys were blocking 20, 30, 40 yards down the field. And so he had a lot of help with people blocking, which, you know, is great to see. But he really did a good job after first contact. And he's a hard guy to bring down. He's a big guy. And so, you know, he did a good job of hanging in there. And sometimes those runs are really muddy. Coach Cristobal says it all the time. I mean, in games like that, there's going to be some muddy runs, and like every now and again, you're going to spit one out and get a big one.
And as you heard Coach Dawson reference the yards after contact, Fletcher had 90 yards after contact against USF, and right now he ranks 32nd nationally with 176 yards after contact. Certainly that was a big part of his performance, but as it's been throughout the season, and I think it's going to be a big factor to watch throughout the rest of the year with Mark. And this is the kind of back he needs to be at a bigger back, and he certainly is. So being able to get those extra yards after contact is certainly important for him and his success. The other thing that stood out to me with what Coach Dawson had to say, and we're seeing it play out through 3 games, and look, Mark is 3rd right now in the ACC in rushing. Last time Miami had a top 5 rusher in the ACC was 2016 with Mark Walton, who finished 5th. But the thing that's standing out to me with how Mark's running, and this is hopefully going to be a sign of things to come, is you heard Coach Dawson reference the wide receiver blocking. We've been hearing that all season, and this is going to help in that area. You know, Mark's going to be able to get yards downfield a little bit easier if the wide receivers are continuing to block at a high level. Look, the offensive line is going to do its part to get him past that line of scrimmage, and then it's going to be up to him and the rest of the players to get yards after the line of scrimmage. So I think that's certainly something to watch for moving forward. You know, there's impressive stats with what Fletcher's been able to do through these first 3 games. One of the things I really like, and I think the offensive line deserves a lot of credit for this, but certainly Mark as well. And you're hoping this does continue also, and that's his yards for loss. He's had 42 carries this season, and only 1 has went for a loss. It was his 3rd carry of the season against Notre Dame, a 3-yard loss. But after that, it's been either positive yards or no gain, and I think that's great. Again, that's what you need from Fletcher. That's what you need from all the backs, but particularly with Fletcher. If he's going to continue to be this lead guy, getting 14, 15, 16 carries a game as a bigger back and really impose his will with his strength, he's got to continue to move forward. And again, you want those big, long yards. And he had 4 carries of at least 10 yards against USF, which is great. I love that stat for a running back. But look, sometimes that doesn't always happen. And you just always want to be able to, you know, get positive yards. You want to continue to stay ahead of the sticks. And I think that's a good sign for Mark. And look, coming into this game against Florida, I think Mark's going to be a key factor. Miami right now ranks 4th in the ACC in rushing, 58th nationally in rushing, and they're facing a run defense in Florida who ranks 23rd. And Florida also hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown all season. And I know from talking to Mark before the season started that getting into the end zone is a point of emphasis for him this year. He doesn't just want the yards, he wants to be able to finish it off. That's why I thought that long touchdown run against USF was great to see him to get that 30-plus yard touchdown run and really finish it off. And I don't know how many times we'll see that, hopefully more, to get into the end zone. But wherever he's at, if they're getting inside the red zone, and look, Miami was great in the red zone against USF, 5 for 5 for 5 touchdowns, but Mark's got to continue to be a big-time red zone threat. And again, with what Florida's done already this season, with how they've been doing a good job of stopping the run, I think it's a big challenge. But I think Mark's up for it, understands it. You know, same way with the offensive line, and Mark knows, and everybody everybody knows. It doesn't just go with him and how he performs. The offensive line has to be great. I touched on the wide receivers, but certainly, I think the passing game is helping the run. If they're stacking the box, as we saw a little bit with USF last week, they have those tight boxes and really do their best to contain a guy like Fletcher. He's got to be able to continue to find ways to get yards, and so far he's been able to do that, and I think he will continue to be able to do that. And I do think for this team to continue to have its success on offense, they've got to continue to be able to run the ball. I know Carson Beck is performing at a high level, completing passes nearly 80% clip, and he's looking great throwing the ball downfield, but look, if Miami's going to continue to win games at a high level, get to the ACC championship game, and hopefully a spot in the college football playoff, those are all goals that they want to accomplish. I think they've got to continue to have this run game that is operating at a high level, and not just one that just kind of gets yards because the passing offense is going well, but really dictate games. And I think that's what this run offense is capable of. I think this is what Mark Fletcher is capable of. And I just think it's great. And I'm going to keep speaking about this because I strongly believe in this. But a guy like Mark, who really a lot of guys on the team seem to really gravitate towards, really are pulling for and rooting for because of just the type of person he is, the way he works, the way he plays the game, the way he approaches a lot of things. I think when a guy like that does well, I think it really helps your team.
The fact that he is getting healthy is really exciting because you see consistent improvement, and his energy, his spirit, his heart, his leadership, his care factor is awesome. Mark Fletcher is a special young man. Big Mark is watching from above. I know he's extremely proud of his son, and he's a guy that you can't wait to go to practice and watch him practice because he's going to bring it. He's going to change the energy of the entire team. So, I guess it sounds boring, but Mark's come a long way.
So continue to look for Mark to play well, and again, it would be a great performance from him if he's able to get those yards, and it might be something like the Notre Dame game. Maybe it's not going to be a 100-yard game, but just those tough yards, get those first downs, whatever it is. If it's 2nd and 6, go ahead and get that first down. 3rd and 4, find ways to just keep it moving, even if it's not those big long runs. But finding ways to be productive and efficient in the run game, I think is really important. But so far, everything's gone well, with this run game, with what we've seen so far from Mark Fletcher, the running game and the offensive line.